Events in far-off Asia had worried Theodore Roosevelt ever since his days as Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Now Japan and Russia were fighting a bloody war there for control of the region.
Roosevelt thought Asia was very important to the United States. He thought that the United States was entering into what he called the Pacific century, and he believed that the United States had to dominate the Pacific in the 20th century.
Roosevelt feared that if either Russia or Japan overwhelmed the other, the balance of power in the region would be upset. By 1905, after a year of fighting, Japan was beating Russia badly.
Roosevelt watches this and understands that what is emerging here is a new Japan. Japan is in the position essentially to dominate Asian politics. A Japan which was now becoming militarily paramount on the mainland of Asia, especially in Korea and South Manchuria. And there began to be a fear in the United States in 1905 that the next place that Japan might move might be the Philippines, where the United States, which the United States, of course, had taken in 1898. And as a consequence, Roosevelt believed that we had to come to terms with Japan.
Determined to stop the fighting and protect the Philippines, Roosevelt sent his good friend, Secretary of War William Howard Taft, to negotiate a secret deal with the Japanese Prime Minister. To conceal the real purpose of this sensitive mission, Roosevelt billed the trip as purely a goodwill tour and sent along his 21-year-old daughter by his first marriage, Alice. The eyes of the world focused on Alice as she was showered with gifts and attention. The Japanese were firmly convinced, the American ambassador wrote, that Alice was the Princess Royal of America. While the women bowed double again and again, Alice clutched my arm and exclaimed, "I love it, I love it." From her reception by the Emperor to her tour of his private gardens, the press reported every detail of Alice's triumph.
This is a bad mistake, because as they're following Alice around, Taft sits down with the Japanese Prime Minister, and secretly they work out a deal. And the deal is that the United States will recognize that Japan can take over Korea, and in return, it is understood that Japan will not touch the Philippines. It is so secret that Taft and Roosevelt keep it secret. It's not revealed for another 20 years. I think if they're ashamed of what they did to Korea, they essentially sold the Koreans out to the Japanese.
Roosevelt had placated the Japanese, but to restore order to the region, he still needed a full-fledged peace. That summer, he invited Russian and Japanese envoys to the United States. They met on the presidential yacht, anchored in the harbor near his home at Sagamore Hill. The Russians were weary of war. The Japanese were weary too, and now they knew that they were free to take Korea. But Roosevelt could still not be certain of a settlement. "I have led the horses to water," Roosevelt wrote a friend, "but heaven only knows whether they will drink or start kicking one another beside the trough." Officially, the president played no part in the negotiations, but he remained active behind the scenes, pushing and prodding the negotiators toward a settlement. "I'm having my hair turned gray," he wrote his son. "The Japanese ask too much, but the Russians are 10 times worse than the Japs because they are so stupid and won't tell the truth. What I really want to do," he confided to a friend, "is to give utterance to whoops of rage and jump up and knock their heads together. Well, all I can hope for is that self-repression will be ultimately good for my character. The future of Asia was at stake. The bickering and bargaining grew heated. But after 3 tense weeks, the delegates agreed to end the war.
The settlement was essentially fair, and it accomplished Roosevelt's purpose. It reestablished the balance of power in Asia, which is what he'd set about to do.
Although neither side was completely satisfied, Roosevelt was delighted. "This is splendid. This is magnificent," Roosevelt told a friend. "It's a mighty good thing for Russia, and a mighty good thing for Japan, and a mighty good thing for me, too." Congratulations poured in from around the world, and Theodore Roosevelt, who believed in the cleansing moral power of war and first won fame for leading the charge up San Juan Hill, was awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace.